Hello again, everyone. It is Derek J407 back to you once again, this time to talk about WWE SummerSlam 2019 live for the second night in a row for a WWE show at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Of course, the previous night was NXT TakeOver Toronto, which was an amazing show with top to bottom a bunch of really great matches, including one of the best matches of the entire year in Io Shirai and Candice LeRae, and a show that set the tone for what we would or what we should expect for the rest of the weekend. And SummerSlam on this night had a lot to live up to. Of course, you can't compare the two shows, but if you must, TakeOver was better, as usual. But SummerSlam was weird in that I look at the show and I look at a lot of the things that happened on the show in terms of finishes in some cases, matches, the quality, the people who won certain matches, and overall, top to bottom, I have to give it a thumbs up show, but it's a very unenthusiastic thumbs up because it was not, by no means great. It was nowhere near perfect because there was a lot of stuff on this show that was not good. Some of it was in fact pretty bad. But I look at a lot of the really good things. There was a pretty good opener for the Women's Championship. Speaking of the women, there was a really good women's match between Charlotte Flair and Trish Stratus on the show. I loved the presentation of the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and the main event turned into a really, really good match. So those are some really good things on this show. Other things that were not so good were the finish of the WWE Championship match, but we will get into that. And yeah, so right from the gate, let's start off with the kickoff. But before we get really too much into it, a problem that was on the kickoff and a problem that continued throughout the pay-per-view for a lot of people was the network itself. As most of you, I'm sure, know, recently the network got a update or upgrade or whatever, a new redesign and a new format of the WWE network, and overall I personally don't hate it all that much, but I know a lot of people do. And on this night, it showed its ugly side because there were a lot of issues early on the kickoff with lagging and freezing and all that kind of stuff. I had it; it was pretty bad. You know, I kind of just refreshed the page a little bit or went back to the featured part and then re-entered the feed for the show. But a lot of other people, especially people who got like Chromecast and all that kind of stuff, or were watching it on their PS4s or whatever. I just watched it on my laptop and hooked it up to an HDMI cord, watch it on the TV. That's usually how I watch these shows anyway. But it was messing up a little bit during the kickoff, but for the regular pay-per-view, it wasn't too bad. But I knew a lot of other people struggled with it, so I just wanted to put that out there, in that this network update is not perfect. But as for the kickoff show itself, match-wise, we had two matches that were announced literally hours before the show, and one match that was already announced going into the show got bumped to the kickoff, which you had to expect it to be. And that was the first match of the kickoff show, and that was Drew Gulak defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Oney Lorcan. A match that was pretty decent, but never really went above a certain level. The fans in the arena really weren't all that into it, but are they ever really into many of these cruiserweight matches? A lot of these matches recently just have not really been all that good. I think ever since Buddy Murphy left the division, it's pretty much gone, I don't want to say downhill, but it's gotten to a point where it's pretty weak. But recently Chad Gable joined the division, so hopefully we can get him in a Cruiserweight Championship match on pay-per-view, and maybe he can liven stuff up. The matches that he had with Jack Gallagher recently on 205 Live were really entertaining. But Gulak won. He retained the title, which he should have. Again, a future match with Gulak and Chad Gable could be pretty interesting. One of the matches that were made hours before the show was this next one, Apollo Crews taking on Buddy Murphy. We got this match on the show instead of a previously announced match between Sami Zayn and Aleister Black. There were no Raw tag team title matches, no SmackDown tag team title matches. A lot of other people were left off the card, yet we got a match between Apollo Crews and Buddy Murphy. But of course, the only reason we got this match was so they could continue the storyline involving Roman Reigns through Buddy Murphy. Of course, the previous week on SmackDown ended with Roman Reigns confronting and beating the hell out of Buddy Murphy to get a name out of him as to who was involved with his recent attacks. And Murphy pointed out that it was Rowan who he saw. So in this match, it ended by a DQ because Rowan came out there and attacked Buddy Murphy, powerbombed him into the steel post. So that pretty much continued the story, and that was really the only further continuation of that story on this entire night. There was no Roman Reigns appearance on TV after what went down with him and Samoa Joe on Raw. There was no Samoa Joe. Daniel Bryan, they showed Daniel Bryan backstage looking on as Rowan attacked Murphy, but other than that, there was nothing from him on the main show. They just showed a bunch of videos recapping the stuff that's happened to Roman, the forklift incident, the car that almost hit him on Raw the previous week, all that stuff. They showed videos recapping it, but they didn't really get into anything further developing the story. But so that was that. Elias had a little concert. He healed up on the crowd, talked about there being no Stanley Cup, and mocked Kawhi Leonard leaving and all that kind of stuff. And to the shock of everyone, we got an appearance by Edge, who made his way out there. No pyro for Edge, which was very weird, especially considering the fact that we got as much pyro on the main show as we did. We had pyro to open it. Goldberg, of course, had pyro. There was pyro at the end. So I guess they didn't want to set the pyro off before the beginning of the show, but whatever. So Edge came out, of course, hometown in Toronto, so he got a huge hero's welcome. Speared Elias, which I never expected Edge to ever do anything physical again. So that was really cool. And then up next, we got the women's tag team title match. Of course, the new champions, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, taking on the former champions, the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. So much for there being no more rematch clauses. But this was a pretty decent match. The best match I've ever seen the Iconics in ever. But in the end, Nikki, she pulled Billie Kay off of the ring apron, while Alexa Bliss was up top, came down with Twisted Bliss on Peyton Royce to get the win. So she, in her Buzz Lightyear attire, and Nikki Cross, they retained their newly won championships. So hey, now that the titles are on Alexa Bliss, at least we know they're going to be on TV more. First match of the official show was Becky Lynch and Natalya for the Raw Women's Championship in a submission match. It was fine. This was one of the matches I wasn't really looking forward to heading into this show because I felt that Becky needed a much stronger opponent. But they tried their damnedest to get some fire and heat onto this feud, but it just never really clicked for me. They tried to make it personal, but I just never really bought into it. But in front of this crowd, they ate it up. Of course, the home country of Natalya, Canada, and they were behind her for a good chunk of this match. Becky, when she came out, and the fans were chanting Becky and they were behind her, but at a certain point, they kind of turned against her a little bit, you know, rooting on the hometown or home country native in Natty. But yeah, so that was very interesting. Of course, you know, both of them got their own submissions, so they were working over each other's body parts. Specifically, Natty was working over Becky's leg, and Becky was working over Natty's arm, so to get ready for their separate submissions. And speaking of their submissions, both of them put each other's submissions on each other. Becky locked in the sharpshooter at one point and got booed for it, which I thought was pretty funny. And Natty locked in the disarm her at one point. But in the end, Natty locked in the sharpshooter. Becky managed to escape it. Natty went to reapply it, but Becky wiggled her way out and turned it into the disarm her, and Natty had no choice but to tap out. So Becky, the hero of Canada, retains her championship, rightfully so. Where she goes from here, I don't know. There's honestly no one else on the Raw women's division that I look at that can be a viable or interesting opponent for her. other than Sasha Banks, who we haven't seen no high nor hair of, or whatever you want to call it. She ain't been around ever since WrestleMania, so who knows. But yeah, Becky wins, and hopefully the next feud she's involved in can be a little more interesting than this one, and definitely the Lacey Evans stuff. Up next, Dolph Ziggler versus Goldberg. I mean, it was hard keeping notes of this match because at the same time this match was going on, I went on to Twitter to look at the watch along feed backstage. They do this thing where they have different superstars from the main roster, NXT, come backstage and sit in a room with Pat McAfee and do a watch along of some of the matches on the show. And just so happened that one of the people watching this specific match was NXT's own Matt Riddle, who has had very interesting opinions of Bill Goldberg. He even told a quick story before the match started of him interacting with Goldberg on this night backstage, and he called him bro, and Goldberg said to him like, "I'm not your bro," and all that kind of stuff, and saying that we're gonna have to talk soon or something like that. So I thought that was really funny. So I was really paying attention to that for a majority of it to see Matt Riddle's reaction to this match. And the match was basically what you expected. Right out the gate, Dolph Ziggler hit a super kick and went for a cover on Goldberg, only good for a 1. And he hit another one to Goldberg's chest, again, a 1 count. He was setting up for another one, but then Goldberg came at him with a wicked spear, just a sick one. And it was very unfortunate that Edge was out there earlier because Goldberg's spear put his to shame, as they always did. But yeah, Goldberg got him up, hit him with a jackhammer, got the win. Now, after the match, Dolph Ziggler got on the microphone and was egging Goldberg on to come back out there saying, like, you're not a real man, you're a coward, and all that kind of stuff. He called him a dipshit, I think. Said, like, any dipshit can just hit one move. You're not going to face me one-on-one. So Goldberg comes back around, gives him another spear. Then he leaves, goes up the ramp, and goes back through Gorilla, and is out of the arena pretty much. And then Dolph gets back on the mic, eggs Goldberg on even more. They replay Goldberg's music. He jogs to the ring, which Matt Riddle joked that he was already sweating again from jogging, or was gassed from jogging, which Matt Riddle's awesome. So Goldberg gets back in the ring, and he spears Dolph again, and he leaves. The ref checks on Dolph, and that's the end of it. It pretty much went down exactly like you would expect it to. So that was pretty much that. Up next for the United States Championship, AJ Styles with his OC brethren at his side, the Raw Tag Team Champions, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. He was defending the title against Ricochet, who came out in pretty sick gear. It was Nightwing inspired. It was all black and had the blue symbol on it, of course, Nightwing. And he wrestled in a full bodysuit pretty much, and it looked cool. I thought it was a really cool outfit. Ricochet pulled off some really impressive things in this match, like you'd expect him to. At one point, AJ was on the outside, and he was kind of hiding behind Gallows and Anderson. And Ricochet, who was on the apron, he kind of stepped over both Gallows and Anderson, stepped over their shoulders, and hit a Hurricane Rana off the apron onto AJ. So I thought that was really cool. But AJ got back into it. He started working over Ricochet's left knee. The match was really good, but it never really kicked into that higher gear because by the time it looked like it was going to get into a higher gear, it ended. At one point, AJ locked in the calf crusher, but Ricochet escaped, slammed AJ's head into the mat, locked in the Anaconda Vice, which apparently got a very small, faint CM Punk chant like you would expect it to. But eventually, AJ managed to get out of it. Of course, Gallows and Anderson were out there, so they provided interference at various points, and that screwed with Ricochet a little bit because he got rid of them, and then he went for a corkscrew moonsault. And when he came off, he landed in a way where AJ caught him in perfect position for him to hit the Styles Clash, and he got the win. So AJ Styles retains the United States Championship. I was shocked by that. I fully expected Ricochet to get the belt back. I thought the whole purpose of this feud was to put Ricochet over and for him to get the big win. I know he lost it in his first defense, or one of his first defenses at the last pay-per-view, but I thought, okay, the reason for that is to put Ricochet over in a bigger way on a big stage like SummerSlam, but that appears not to be the case. This feud could continue after the match. Gallows and Anderson laid out Ricochet with the Magic Killer, so maybe Ricochet could weasel his way into another match in the future, but for now, I don't know. But like I said, a really good match, but nothing overly special. And I've found myself saying that about a lot of big AJ Styles matches within the last couple of years. The stuff with Nakamura last year, and even Samoa Joe to a certain degree. Really liked the match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania this year, but even that wasn't overly special. The match he had at Money in the Bank with Seth Rollins was great. That was a fantastic match. That was probably the best AJ Styles big marquee match that he's had in a lot of years. And I'm not saying AJ is bad now, because I've seen him have a lot of really good matches on TV with people like Andrade and stuff like that. But as far as these big pay-per-view matches, I don't know. I think he's kind of lost a step or two in recent years, but I'm still entertained by him. I like the stuff with him and the OC and seeing them all reunited. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes from here. Like I said, I don't know if this stuff with him and Ricochet is going to continue or not, but we'll see. They had the Street Profits backstage doing more unfunny shit that they do. It's a shame, you see them in NXT and how great and over they are there, and then on the main roster, it's nowhere near as entertaining as they are in NXT. But they had Ric Flair show up, and they did some comedy with him, and that was mildly funny, but really was nothing special, which perfectly segues into this next match, the SmackDown Women's Championship match between Bayley and Ember Moon. You have two really talented women here, so you think the crowd will be really into it. They'll click, they'll have great chemistry, and the match will be really good. But when your build-up for this match is pretty lackluster, and your challenger looks weak almost every single step of the way leading into this match, that might affect the reaction to it, which happened here. The crowd really did not care. Bayley got a pretty lukewarm reaction. Ember Moon got almost no reaction, and throughout the entire match, it was pretty slow. There was no fire really into it, and it really just wasn't exciting. And I really wasn't all that excited about this match. I was excited for it when it first got announced, but then when the match, as the weeks progressed, the build-up to it has just made Ember look like a chump and undeserving of this title opportunity. And I really feel like that was a big part of why there was next to no reaction to this entire match. The finish saw Ember up top attempting to go for the Eclipse, but Bayley shot up there, hit the Bayley belly off the top rope, so that popped the crowd a little bit, but it got a 1, 2, 3, and it was over. So Bayley retains, Ember gets pinned clean, and I don't know where they go from here. And quite frankly, I don't really care. I've not been impressed with Bayley's title run ever since she won at Money in the Bank. The matches she had on pay-per-view with Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross and all that kind of stuff, none of it was interesting, and this match was very lackluster. So I fully expect her to face Charlotte at the next pay-per-view, Clash of Champions, seeing as how Charlotte's hometown is where Clash of Champions is going to be at. So maybe that'll be interesting. Otherwise, I don't really care. Up next, Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon in a match where if Kevin Owens were to lose, he would have had to retire. And of course, Shane, being the heel authority figure and all that kind of stuff, he announced a guest enforcer for this match, and he announced it to be Elias, who came out there and was the enforcer, was trying to egg on Owens at different points to get him disqualified and counted out and all that kind of stuff, which anyway Owens could have lost, he would have lost, and he would have had to have quit. So that was the plan, to distract him and lead him to getting himself or screwing over himself to lose. But it didn't work. At one point, Elias threw a chair into the ring and was egging on Owens to use it on Shane. Even Shane was kind of egging him on a little bit. At one point, Shane even slapped him, but he never did it. He threw the chair down, and he ended up hitting him with a swanton and frog splash and all that kind of stuff. Elias pulled the referee out before he could count the 3, and then Owens off the apron did a dive to Elias, but the referee was also outside, so he took out the referee. Owens then started to beat up Elias with the steel chair, and he got back in the ring, was about to use the chair on Shane, but then right at that moment he was about to use it, the original referee, he got back up, got back in the ring, was telling Owens not to use it. Owens was like, "You're right, I'm not going to use it." So he handed it back to the referee, and with the referee's back turned, he gave Shane a low blow in his Shane-O-Max, I guess you could call it. Gave him the low blow, hit him with a stunner, and got the win. So, big win for Kevin Owens in front of his home country of Canada. A huge pop for him. The fans were really super into Kevin Owens and hated Shane. They were even like, "You can't wrestle" chants at him. So this babyface run for Kevin Owens so far has been pretty good. And I was hoping this match would be a way to kind of put a final stamp, an ending mark on the Shane McMahon character on TV for a while. But that finish leaves the door open for Shane to still stick around to continue this feud, which I have no desire. Not only do I not have any desire to see this feud continue, I have no desire to see Shane McMahon continue to appear on TV. So, hopefully, I know the stipulation was not that if Shane quit, he would, or if Shane lost, he would quit, but still, like, whether it's tonight or if they do something on SmackDown this week to write Shane off TV, please do something so we can get rid of Shane for at least a while. Like, we seriously need a break from the guy. So the match was nothing. It was all gimmicked up, but it was a way to get a big win for Kevin Owens, and it accomplished at least that. So at least he won. Can't say the same for the Miz feud that Shane had. So at least Kevin Owens won here. Up next, we got Trish Stratus, the hometown favorite, taking on Charlotte Flair. A battle of generations, and no lie, this was a really good match. It started off pretty slow. Trish did some impressive kind of like head scissors moves and all that kind of stuff in the beginning, but she got a "You Still Got It" chant. But otherwise, the fans really weren't all that into it. When Charlotte went on offense, they were kind of quiet for most of it. But so it started slow, but it built up really nicely, and it turned out to be a really good match. One of the best matches of the entire night. At one point, both women were on the very top rope, and Charlotte, or Trish, was trying to do that thing where she kind of comes up and does the Hurricane Rana off the top, but Charlotte kind of caught her and pulled her up, had her in a powerbomb position, but Trish managed to get out of it and ended up hitting the Hurricane Rana after all. So I thought that was really impressive. Trish, she locked in her own figure 4 leg lock and even turned it into the figure 8, which got a huge pop from the crowd, which I thought was really impressive. She really couldn't hold on to it for very long. She kind of let go of it and turned it back into a regular figure 4, and Charlotte managed to get out of it. So, but for the brief period of time it lasted, I thought it was really cool. And like I said, the fans were into it, but they were into everything that Trish Stratus did in this match. Trish Stratus was on point in this entire match, and I'm trying to think back to her original run. I don't recall her ever really being in matches quite as competitive as the ones, not only the ones we see the women have today for the most part, but this one in particular. Like, some of the bumps that she was taking were not bumps that I recall Trish really taking on a consistent basis back in the day. So by that regard, this was really impressive. She hit her big moves. She hit the Stratusfaction, which didn't really look all that impressive. It looked like Charlotte was basically carrying her the entire way, which is the move. That's how it is. You're reliant on the other person. But it just looked a little more obvious on this show than it has in the past. It was only good for a 2 count, though. She also hit the chick kick, but again, only good for a 2 count. She was going for a big boot, but at the exact same time, Charlotte was as well, and Charlotte's connected. She was hitting big boots all throughout the match, and this one connected big time. She locked in the figure 4, transitioned it into the figure 8, and Trish ended up tapping out. Fans didn't like it all that much, but they gave Trish a huge standing ovation after the match. Charlotte was gone. She left the ring, and Trish was out there. She was posing on each corner. Everyone was giving her applause. All the people were on ringside and all that kind of stuff. She went to leave, and I think it was like the referee who was out there. He stopped her and told her, like, no, do one more pose, and to get all 4 corners of the ring. So I bet that was probably a cue from the back for her to continue the posing. So she the applause was well deserved. She was really awesome in this match. I really enjoyed Trish, and of course Charlotte. I know she gets shat on a lot for, you know, how heavily she's focused on and all that kind of stuff. And oh, it's because of her last name that she gets the opportunities that she does and all the championships that she's held and all that kind of stuff. But she's really good. I don't know if I would call her the very best of this generation. I mean, are we including only WWE, or are we also including outside of WWE? Because if we are, I'd give that distinction to Tessa Blanchard, if you ask me. But within the company, Charlotte is still to this day one of the absolute best athletes that the entire women's division has. She has gotten a lot of opportunities because of her last name, but she also has gotten them because she continues to deliver. Of the three women's matches on the main show, on this show, and I would even include the women's tag on the pre-show, of all four women's matches, this was the best one, and it's not that hard to believe that that's the case, especially considering the fact that Charlotte was the one in this match. So, very impressive from both women. Charlotte, of course, delivers as always, and Trish was extremely impressive in this match. So, like I said, probably I guess to some people it might have been the best match of the night, but I think it was second behind the main event. Still good, though. One of the funniest moments on WWE television I have seen in a long time happened up next. They cut to backstage. They show Seth Rollins getting ready. You hear the crowd in the background, they booed, so that was an omen of what to expect later on in the night. But so Seth is getting ready, and up comes Bret Hart, who the fans pop huge for. He shakes Rollins' hand, wishes him the best of luck in the match tonight, and that was it. But it was just hilarious seeing, of all people, Bret Hart endorse Seth Rollins in some way. He didn't like raise his arm or anything like that, but like he wished him luck. Any interaction between Bret Hart and Seth Rollins on TV, that was so funny. If you know Bret's history of his ruthless comments bagging on Seth Rollins in the past for, you know, injuring other people and all that kind of stuff and being an unsafe worker and all the stuff that he said about Seth in the past, to see him, his lone appearance on this entire show that I know of is in a segment involving him wishing Seth Rollins good luck. That was hilarious. If you don't think so, you're wrong. I'm sorry. That was really funny. Up next, we got one of the matches I was looking forward to the most heading into this show, based on the build-up and story around it, and that was Kofi Kingston defending his WWE Championship against Randy Orton. Of course, the build-up to this match revolved around their history going back 10 years. You know, back when Kofi Kingston was kind of first breaking into the main event scene, and Randy Orton played politics to keep Kofi Kingston down. Of course, you know about the infamous stupid incident, I guess, not to sound redundant, but so yeah, they were building off that, and also the fact that the reason that Kofi Kingston got into this spot was because Ali earlier in the year was injured by Randy Orton and had to be taken out of the Elimination Chamber, which is what led to Kofi Kingston getting that spot, which is what led to Kofi Mania taking off like it did. So it was really good that there was a whole complete story heading into this match. The match itself, I thought, was pretty good. The crowd was into it, and they seemed to be behind Kofi, although they were having a dueling chant of Kofi stupid and Randy sucks. So I don't know if they were chanting Kofi stupid because they didn't like him, or if they were just playing off of that whole stupid stuff. But I mean, judging by what happened at the end of the match, or after the match I should say, and the reaction that Kofi got, you would think that they didn't like him. But I think that was less about Kofi and more about what they did, which honestly we can skip right to that. Kofi, he was going for a dive, but Randy caught him with an RKO in midair. Beautiful, got a huge pop like you'd expect it to. Kofi managed to roll away, so Randy didn't immediately go for the cover. He was even smiling while laying down, not going for the cover on Kofi, which gave Kofi enough time to roll out of the ring, and he was on the outside. He managed to roll to the outside in the area right next to where his wife and kids were. Of course, his one son, who was a highlight of WrestleMania weekend. He was right there. He was cheering on his dad, and he was kind of yelling at Randy, who got out of the ring and was picking up Kofi. Randy didn't necessarily do anything. He was just kind of staring at Kofi's son. And I guess the idea was that, Kofi was down, so he was kind of like shoving Kofi's face into his family to kind of like saying, like, look what I'm doing to your dad and all that kind of stuff. I'm embarrassing him. I guess that was it. And he was kind of taunting them. But for whatever reason, that was enough for Kofi to snap. He just started unwailing on Randy, just started to beat the piss out of him. Meanwhile, the referee is still counting, and he ended up reaching 10, and both men got counted out. I didn't even hear him count, but the bell rang out of nowhere. The fans erupted into just boos and bullshit chants, and that was the finish of your WWE Championship match on this show. So Kofi, heated, he gets a kendo stick, starts just firing all over on Randy Orton, gets him back in the ring, even calls him, or not calls him, but like said, like, oh, get your bitch ass up or something like that, and hit him with the Trouble in Paradise to stand tall, and got cheered on by his family at ringside. They were the only ones cheering because this crowd did not like that finish, and guess what? Neither did I. I don't even need to talk about the fact that this is basically the exact same finish that we got last year in the WWE Championship match between AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. Although in that case, it was a DQ because AJ, used a chair on Samoa Joe. This was not a DQ in this match. Both men got counted out. You can kind of blame Randy Orton because he was the one who was holding on to Kofi for so long to start the count. But Kofi, by his rage and all that kind of stuff, didn't realize the count was still going on. So I don't know when the bell rang, like as soon as Kofi started to punch and hit on Randy Orton. So both men got counted out. It's such a stupid finish. I understand they want to continue this feud now and make it a little more personal and carry it into the next show. There had to have been an easier way to do that than what they did here. You couldn't have had Kofi beat Randy, and then after the match, Randy attacks Kofi, and then while attacking Kofi after already losing, he taunts Kofi in front of his family, and then Kofi unleashes, and then that's a way for Randy Orton to still, you can tell a story that he's still inside Kofi's head, and that leads to the rematch. I don't know, because obviously there's going to be a rematch, but I just think the way they went about it was just so stupid. I hate seeing countouts or disqualifications or no contests. Sometimes they're understandable and acceptable, but here I just didn't like it. I hated it, and the match itself was good, nothing great, nothing overly special, and that finish was just so dumb. So maybe the next match they'll have a stipulation to it. I don't know. And honestly, I didn't really want this match to continue past this show, but it is what it is. Up next, I'm excited about this. We had Finn Balor taking on the Fiend, Bray Wyatt. This the Firefly Funhouse stuff and everything that they've been doing with Bray Wyatt as a revamp, a rejuvenation of his character since like April, all came to culmination here. We got our first glimpse at the new Bray Wyatt in this Fiend gimmick, and hell of an entrance, I tell you that. We didn't get Demon Balor on the show. We got regular Finn Balor. He came out first, and then we got the what's it called, the Firefly Funhouse song, and it quickly transitioned to the lights going out, big letters of "Let Him In" flashing on the Titantron, and out came Bray Wyatt with that cool ass mask, a new remixed version of his theme song with what sounded like children singing it, while like a demonic voice was kind of in the background. There was something shouting "hurt" and "heal," which was a little goofy, but I won't dwell on that too much. And he was holding a lantern like usual, like the old gimmick, but the lantern was the old Bray Wyatt, his head, a decapitated head of the original Bray Wyatt character with its mouth like just wide open with the light sticking out of it. Creepy and sadistic as hell, and I loved it. This whole entrance was amazing. And the match starts, and it's pretty much Bray killing Finn Balor the entire time. He even snapped his neck at one point. It looked like it was very sick. Balor tried to make a comeback, You know, he tried to do a bunch of stomps and all that kind of stuff. He escaped from his sister Abigail and was doing a bunch of stomps and drop kicks and all that kind of stuff. He went up top going for the coup de grace, but when he came down, he got caught right into the mandible claw that we saw Bray Wyatt get on Mick Foley a few weeks ago on the Raw Reunion show. And Balor was out. He was laid out. Referee counted 1, 2, 3, and Bray Wyatt won. So, great first night back for Bray Wyatt as the Fiend. He was presented extremely well. He looked like an absolute monster, both in his entrance and the match itself. So great. He won decisively and dominantly. Great. My advice, keep this shit up. Do this with the next feud he has, and the feud after that, and the feud after that. Keep this up. Do not stop that. You have a formula now. This is your template here. Just keep doing it. Make this guy look as strong as possible all the time. Do not screw this guy up again. You managed to screw up what seemed like a very easy gimmick to handle before, but somehow the old man didn't know what to do with it and ended up fucking up. You have a second shot here. You knocked it out of the park the first night here. You've been knocking it out of the park with all the Firefly Funhouse skits. Great. It's awesome. Keep it up now. Keep this up. And now Balor, I assume, is going to go on that 2-month sabbatical that he's been rumored to be taking. So I'm sure when he comes back, he'll probably go right back after the Fiend. He might even bring the Demon with him. Okay, if he does, the Demon should lose. We have not seen the Demon very often, and whenever we do, he wins. But if Finn Balor comes back with the Demon needs to lose to the Fiend. Because no 50-50 booking, none of that shit. No, Bray Wyatt needs to keep winning as this character. He needs to win and win at all costs all the time. So great stuff here. Just keep it up. Then finally, the main event for the Universal Championship, Brock Lesnar defending his championship against a less than 80, 70, 60% version of Seth Rollins. Brock Lesnar's 6th main event of SummerSlam, by the way. Or 6th straight main event, I should say. So like I mentioned in that segment with Bret Hart earlier, Seth Rollins was booed. He was not well liked in this match. But Brock didn't really get overly cheered either. So going into this match, I was done with this feud. The way that Seth had been portrayed up to this point, I did not like, and obviously I did not like Brock Lesnar being the champion again, so I had no interest in either man heading into this match. But gosh damn it, these guys went out there and had a damn good match. These guys had what turned out to be a really good match. Seth Rollins, you know, he played the babyface in peril for a good chunk of this match. Brock Lesnar sold extremely well for a lot of this match. These guys had a really good match. So Brock was dominating the injured ribs of Seth Rollins early on. He went for a German suplex, but Rollins managed to land on his feet, hit him with a stomp, only good for a 2 count. Brock eventually got back up. He tried to go for another German suplex, but again, Seth Rollins lands on his feet. He hits 2 super kicks, went for another stomp, but then Brock laid him out with an F5 and got some distance from him. And then from then on, it was Brock Lesnar beating the shit out of Seth Rollins again. The bandages that were around Seth's ribs, he just pulled him by the bandages and just swung him around for a little bit. Started taking him to Suplex City, a bunch of suplexes in the ring, even one on the outside. He tried to go for an F5 into the ring post, but Rollins managed to escape and shoved Brock face first into the steel post, which I thought was gonna bust Brock open, but it did not. So he showed some restraint there. Eventually, Brock, he took the gloves off, and it looked like something was gonna happen, but nothing really ever did. There was no blood in this match. He managed, Seth that is, to get Brock Lesnar laid out on the announce table. Brock cleared the table, and then once he was done, he turned back around. Seth super kicked him, and he landed on the table. Brock got back in the ring, went up top, went on to the very top of the LED post, and hit a frog splash. From there, all the way down onto Brock through the, I think it was the German announce table. So, insane spot. Probably one of the biggest spots of the entire night. Gets back in the ring eventually, hits the stomp again, and at this point, it's like, okay, this must be it. It was not it. It's only good for a 2 count. So then Seth Rollins goes to attempt the stomp one more time. Then Brock Lesnar counters it, gets Seth up for the F5, and it's like, oh, well, here it is. It's about to end. But Seth manages to escape. He goes for the stomp again, connects with it for the 3rd time, I believe, in this match, gets the 1, 2, 3. And the man who guaranteed victory over Brock Lesnar the previous week on Monday Night Raw followed through. Seth Rollins, once again Universal Champion. By the midway point of the match, all the way through the end, all the way to the finish, the crowd was back behind Seth Rollins, back into his favor, supporting him once again. And I won't say I loved Seth Rollins any more than I did going into this match, but I thought the match was well booked, well paced, well sold by both men, and in the end, it turned out to be really damn good. A really great main event, another really great Brock Lesnar match that it seems like we rarely get, but when we do, it's against guys of the same size as Seth Rollins, and it was great here. And in the end, we got a big celebration for Seth Rollins. They even had the pyro go off for him when he won at the end of the show. So really great. What they do with Seth Rollins now, I have no idea. Drew McIntyre was nowhere to be found in the show, so I assume a Drew McIntyre-Seth Rollins feud is in our future. They gotta do something to heat this guy back up, because this was tonight, but he lost a lot of steam recently, you know? The feud with Baron Corbin, the way he's been booked to look against Brock Lesnar in this feud, and of course, outside of the ring, his recent interviews and Twitter comments and all that kind of stuff has just made Seth Rollins extremely unlikable and someone that you just can't really get behind all that much. So hopefully this is the reset button for him. Hopefully now this reign as Universal Champion can be a lot better than his other one, which ended for no reason. He beat Brock at WrestleMania, and then he lost his title only to get it back a month later. Why did that happen? They wanted to justify putting the briefcase on Brock and have a successful cash-in, which they had not had for the last 2 men's winners. So they wanted to justify that, even though that in and of itself was a waste of time, because Brock Lesnar had no business winning that briefcase in the first place. But yeah, decent finish here. Like I said, Brock Lesnar lost, and now Seth Rollins is once again the Universal Champion. So where they go from here, I don't know, but you gotta make Seth, you gotta make him redeemable again. You gotta make him likable again. It might take a little work, but tonight was a good step. It started out with the fans booing him, and over the course of the match, they firmly got back into his corner to the point where at the end, they popped huge for him winning. Not just because we got a title change, but because they wanted to see him beat Brock, which he did, and they reacted for it. So that's the key going forward. So like I said, overall, a good show, but nothing overly special. I really liked that main event. I really liked Trish and Charlotte. The Fiend presentation was awesome, but like I said, the finish of Kofi and Randy sucked. And just overall, it's a thumbs up effort, but just not enthusiastically. Next time I'll talk to you guys about a WWE show, it'll be Clash of Champions in September. So that's it for me with SummerSlam weekend. So take care, everybody.